when the Conservative Party, after a good run of 200 years, ceases to be a national party. They are going to be obliterated in Scotland. They are going to barely exist in Wales. And if you look at where the local councils are taking place, the counties that will now go ahead are all Conservative held. I believe we're going to do phenomenally well in those counties, as we did in the 10 that we won a clear majority in, the other 2 that we're the main party in. You look at where thousands of council seats are being fought. Gateshead, Newcastle, Barnsley, Sandwell, Wolverhampton. I genuinely think that when we sit here on May the 8th next year, you'll all take a very different view. They will not be a national party. So the
advising your friend, the President of the United States, to do everything he can to help Ukraine win the battlefield and help change things?
Well, that's a big question. In terms of legal action, there's one legal action I wasn't necessarily going to say this, but you teased it out of me. You say and so. The one legal action that we're going to consider tonight, but I've not yet had proper time to look at it, is whether we can go to judicial review to make these mayoral elections go ahead. That is something I'll be looking at tonight, and I can't really give you a firm opinion on it now, only to say that we have talked to our lawyers briefly before we came in this room, and we're considering that. When it comes to generally fighting libel actions, defamation actions, I have fought them in the past. I've never lost one. I haven't fought very many, but my experience is they take up a huge amount of your emotional capital, your financial capital. You almost become obsessed with the case, and you live, breathe, and sleep it to the detriment of virtually everything else. What is clear is that, I think I said it already to one of the earlier questions, I think that Putin is not looking for any sense of a fair and equitable deal, and I made it clear at the weekend that anyway, you could argue that the limits of size put on the Ukrainian army are bigger than they ever would have been in peacetime. Yeah, you could argue that, but equally it's making a demand on Ukrainian sovereignty, and generally the only people that accept limitations on the size of their army, their air force or their navy are people who've signed unconditional surrenders. So on a point of sovereignty principle, I don't find that acceptable. And look, of course there are arguments about Russian-speaking areas, there are arguments about what might have happened over the course of the last 20 years, 100 years, all of that's complicated. But I don't think that Zelensky, and who knows how long he's going to last, because we've always known that Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries in the world, but he's shown personal bravery. How can Zelensky give up territory that they've lost tens of thousands of lives defending? So the deal as it is at the moment doesn't work and can't stand. But look, can I be clear? That is not an anti-Trump comment. I admire Donald Trump for trying damn hard to find a peace settlement. And what he's achieved in the Middle East, I think, is greater than any American president has achieved in half a century. And Trump's strength is that he is by nature a peacemaker, not a warmonger, like most of the American presidents that have preceded him in the previous quarter of a century. Some would argue his desperation for peace is perhaps a weakness as well. You can view it how you want, but he's always been very, very determined to use this second presidency to try and use American might and muscle, and forget the tariff arguments, they're about money, but to try and achieve peace in the world if he can. And I admire him hugely for it, and I know how frustrated he's been by Putin's lack of rationality. Chambers, sorry. I know how frustrated he's been by Putin's lack of rationality. Aggie Chambers from LBC. Chambers, sorry.
Thank you, Aggie Chambers.
Yeah.
Can I just check what you meant in your responses to Damien Grammaticus and Harry Horton? Because it seemed like you were suggesting that the alleged comments should be placed in the context of time. Do you agree now that comments like that would be unacceptable now? You're trying to suggest they weren't acceptable then? And there's lots of Tories that obviously you wouldn't want in Reform UK, but would you be interested in having Robert Jenrick by your side?
That's a really good question. Well done. Look, back in the 1970s, the culture was very different, especially at Dulwich. Lots of boys said lots of things they'd regret today or simply just laugh at. And the double standards from the BBC this morning were wholly unacceptable. Now, a Jenrick question cropped up in an article in the Times that popped up, to my surprise, last night, which basically said that people within Reform were advising me that I should reach out to Robert Jenrick. And I get people in Reform urging and advising me every day to reach out to sporting figures, to reach out to business figures, to reach out to media figures, to reach out to political figures. And have one or two suggested I should reach out to Jenrick? Yes, they have, because they believe that his conversion from being the Remainer Robert Jenrick to being what he is today is a genuine one. And I don't know, but if it is a genuine one, I'd be more than happy to talk to him. Okay? Right, we've got a couple more to go through. Lucy Dunn from the